Welcome to episode 120 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now, and I'm suddenly really glad I'm an only child after watching this film. So this is normally where Don would introduce himself, but he's not here today. Don finally, after 2 years, decided he got a break as well. I've taken a couple episodes off, so it's only fair. So Jeff Strand is here. Jeff, you are stuck with me alone today.
Yeah, without Don, we're each going to have to be 50% more entertaining and insightful. We have to make up for the loss.
It's a heavy load to carry, man.
Or, you can do 60, I'll do 40. We'll figure it out. But somehow together we have to fill the gaping hole in this episode's podcast.
Oh, man. So I want to start by saying, if you haven't seen Found, the movie we're talking about today, go watch it. I'm normally a big spoilers guy. Spoilers do not faze me in the slightest bit, but I understand how important they are to others. And I feel like this is one film more than most that I see, where I would say, if you're that type of person, go watch it and then come back and listen to this.
Yes, we are going to ruin everything.
And we're going to have a great time doing it. So Jeff, why don't you tell our listeners a bit about yourself?
I'm Jeff Strand, mostly known for writing horror comedy. I've done 50 books at this point, stuff like Dweller, Pressure, Ferocious, My Pretties, bunch of stuff generally known as the horror comedy guy, but some stuff leans a lot more toward the comedy. Some stuff leans a lot more toward the not so funny. And I'm just finally getting into screenwriting. So I have cool news that I'm not allowed to talk about here. But, the next time I'm on, I'll have all kinds of amazing stuff to share.
Fantastic. So you mentioned the horror comedy thing, and people that have read my books know that's also my thing. I love horror and comedy and how they work together. And I think it's so hilarious that the two of us are doing this film.
The grim nihilism of Found.
But why don't you at some point during this, you don't have to do it yet, but just kind of show people how comedy does play into this, because it does. Yeah, and I think that your writing style in particularly really plays into the same strengths as this film, of showing things that are horrific and yet still funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there are elements of, especially the final line is basically as dark a comedy line as you can get. But overall, it's not a funny film. You're not going to sit there, what a jolly good time we're having. This isn't Return of the Living Dead, which we covered the last time I was on. This is grim stuff.
Absolutely. But for me, it was even when they're watching the movie Headless, which we'll get to, there were parts that were so over the top that you reach that point where you laugh out of nervousness or just awe. And I always think that that's interesting as well, because that's not comedy, but it's stuff I laugh at in real life. I make a lot of really dark jokes because it's how I deal with shit. So
yeah. Well, the first time I saw this film, I didn't know what to expect. I saw it at the Freak Show Film Festival, which is part of Spooky Empire in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, cool.
And so it was basically a Sunday afternoon screening. Not many people there. It was after 3 full days of horror movies. And so I had basically the little promotional postcard, but it didn't really say that much about what it was about. So I'll watch Found. Not low expectations, no expectations. Just, I don't really know what this is. Let's check it out. And one line in, it's okay, you've reeled me in. The very first line is, my brother keeps a head in his closet. So I was like, okay, you have engaged me. And I watched the movie, sort of staggered out of the room, thinking, wow, that is one of the best micro-budget horror films I've ever seen. When I got back to my hotel room, looked up the movie, immediately ordered the book that it was based on by Todd Rigney, and then was just reading interviews, looking at I need to know everything there is to know about this movie. So then I kind of became one of its many champions, just and hey, what movie have I never heard of that I should watch tonight? Found. But be prepared, because it's gonna mess you up for life.
Yeah, I would agree fully. I had never heard of it until you brought it up to do it on the show. And, I go in and I see the description of the film is like a fifth grader finds out his brother's a serial killer and keeps heads in his closet. And I'm like, I'm in. And I had no idea that that's like the most normal thing in this film. Like, it gets so much fucking weirder from there.
That's where it starts. That's before even the opening credit. The first thing you learn about this character is that his brother keeps heads in the closet in a bowling ball bag, and it's a different head. So every few days, a different head is in there.
That's what really did it for me, too. It was the second line of the movie. Like, the first one hits hard, my brother keeps heads in a bowling ball bag or whatever. But it's the follow-up of every so often it changes. And I was just like, that says so much in two lines. It says he's a serial killer, if this wasn't a one-time thing, but also about the main character. He's gone back to this repeatedly, and he clearly does nothing, so much in two sentences.
Yeah. Well, it's not horror. We're not there with him when he sees it, the very first head. By this point, he's seen lots of heads, but it's curiosity. He takes it out of the closet, opens it, takes out the head, kind of looks at it, puts it back, worries a little bit that maybe he didn't put it back facing the right way because he's not sure how attentive his brother is when he puts the head in the bag. But it's kind of this little kid curiosity. He's aware that it's a bad thing. He doesn't admire his brother, but it's kind of, hey, this is this weird thing that my brother does, and I'm sort of fascinated by it. So you set up that he's not a completely normal little kid. He's got some issues.
Well, and I like how they give him the backstory of seeking out other people's secrets. He talks about how he found his mom's collection of love letters from her ex-boyfriend that she still keeps. And then, dad's got a bunch of Playboys or penthouses or whatever out in the garage. But I like how those are such normal secrets, if you will, parental secrets, right?
Right.
Those are so normal. Like, everybody had that. Everybody's dad had a Playboy somewhere or whatever. And mom had some weird shit that nobody talks about, But then this other one is a hell of a secret comparatively. And I love that it's just all the same to him.
But what's interesting is that he always goes back to me. You can understand that, a 12-year-old is going to repeatedly dive into his father's Playboy collection.
Sure.
But he establishes, he read his mom's ex-boyfriend's love notes, found them too cheesy, but he just, every once in a while, he'll sneak under her bed, open up the box, take out the letters, look at them, put them back. Just, he's really into the invasion of privacy thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. I didn't even think of it that way, but you're 100% right. Wow.
And that's our protagonist. That's who we'll be spending time with for the next 103 minutes of this movie.
One of the big things I also want to just point out in this is he is just heavily bullied throughout, and by like literally everyone in the film, whether it's the main bully or just the way his dad treats him or how mom reacts to things and tries to make things right socially so that her image is perfect. In some way, he's bullied by everyone in this film. And I really appreciated how they took that to another level and showed how it affects every aspect of your life. Right. What did you think about that? Just there's no one in this film that he's safe from.
Right. His older brother bullies him. Yeah, it's pretty much everybody, including, you can make a case that when he's at church and finally lashes out, it's, the whole, you need to apologize, even though he started it. The whole, everyone is sort of oppressing him through the whole movie, whether it is bullying or just the kid has no control over his life, which is part of probably why he takes control by snooping in everyone's secrets. Like, sure, mom controls my life, but I can have some little bit of control by reading her old love letters.
Well, and he even kind of talks about that. I think it was with the dad where he's like, I wonder what mom would say if she knew this was here or something like that. Yeah. And I think that's exactly it. I think he's looking for any piece of control he can get. So he kind of has something over everybody, but he also doesn't have the courage to use it in any way,
Right.
but it makes him feel better.
Yeah, I mean, he's engaging for the story. He's the perfect narrator for this story. But he's not a kid you would want to hang around. He's really glum and moody, and you can understand why he doesn't have friends. You don't understand why he gets bullied. The bullying part is wrong, but you figure he's probably not that much fun to spend time around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you're kind of waiting, okay, where is this movie headed? Is this, his story of, hey, maybe what my brother does isn't so bad after all because he's got control.
And I mean, I do think that he definitely looks up to his brother in that way, because as it progresses and he watches him, he kind of, pulls out of that, and that's where he gets that power. So, yeah, I definitely think you're onto something with that.
But of course, that's not where things end up.
No, of course not. We couldn't possibly end there. But let's back up to the bullying at the school when we first get the bathroom scene. I don't know about you, but I was bullied a lot as a kid. Not quite to this level. Like, I didn't fear going into a bathroom stall, but it was just, I was one of the kids on the lower end of the totem pole, so to speak, right? Yeah. And so for me, like, I already heavily identified with this. I think it's a great way to kind of make us care about him and stuff. But just immediately watching how far they go. Like they're immediately physical. They're immediately trying to see him naked and make fun of him. And they're trying to it felt like they were already over all these lines. So then that showed me how long it's been going on. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing that I don't think about it enough, but it really drove home to me that he's been dealing with this forever.
Right. This is not his first encounter. And it's real specifically, he won't use the urinals. He has to go into the stall. And the bullies know this because they call him out. Oh, you have to go into the stall again. What are you're scared we're going to see your dick? And he's not surprised when they crawl under there. So it's kind of, we're not seeing his first encounter. We're seeing a kid who's resigned to his fate. He knows what's going to happen. He sort of glumly walks in there, knowing that they're going to probably slide under there, knowing he'll probably get beat up. He's never the one who tells. It's other kids.
Yeah.
The tattletale because, hey, they went in, they beat him up, all this stuff. It's never him intervening because he just accepts it. This is what's going to happen to me. It sucks, but what am I going to do? And so he goes in, tries to go to the bathroom, has the encounter, gets beat up a little bit, and that's just the way it is for poor Marty.
Well, even Marty, when they start crawling under the stall door, Marty takes a defensive position against the back wall. This is not a kid figuring this out for the first time. Right. He has a whole plan. And the worst part is he knows his plan never fucking works. That was the horror to me. This is all you can do, and it won't work. That sucks.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not Marty. I dealt with bullies. I'm from the 70s, kid. So it was, the attitude then was, yeah, they're bullies. Get over it. Suck it up. So you kind of just went with it. But I didn't have anything to the extreme of, being afraid to go to the bathroom at school or anything like that. You get shoved on the ice and stuff like that. But the ongoing terror of, because even his friends don't like him that much. He's got his best friend, and instead of, we're friends to the end, we'll stand up against the bullies, his friend at some point just says, it embarrasses me that you're bullied, and when you're not around, they bully me more, so screw you.
Man.
It's not a scene you expect to see in the movie. You kind of figure that maybe his best friend will be in danger, or at least he's got his best friend to count. You really don't expect the scene where his friend is just like, I'm done being your friend because you're pathetic.
And that hits so hard. I know the acting isn't always perfect in this film, but it was great in this scene to me. This drove it home so much. This kid is literally just when you're not there, they pick on me. And I loved that it's not even about being your friend. I just want you there because they'll pick on you instead of me. You're my shield.
Yeah.
And then just the conversation is basically, it's more work to be your friend than not to. And this kid that just needs somebody to care is ditched again, right?
Yeah. And of course, we're getting ahead, but it's sort of a turning point for a movie it is very much a horror film. And of course, we've seen the Headless clips by this point. So we've seen, all the gore and stuff, but the film is still kind of a drama at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are a couple moments in the movie where if you paused it and said, what do you think is going to happen next? So our hero is, I'm going to go I'm going to show you something. You think I'm scared? Here's something that'll scare you. He goes to the closet. You pause the movie, 100% the bag is empty. He's going to take out the bag, open it up, and his friends will say, there's nothing in there. But that's not how it plays out. The head is there. And so suddenly, watching it for the first time, I'm like, whoa, that is not a event I expected to happen.
Well, and it's not just any head either.
Right.
It's Marcus, the kid that's been bullying our main character, Marty. And his brother found out who did it, went out, and he ended Marcus's life, chopped off his head and put it in the bag. And like you said, I expected it to be empty. Like, that's every film ever. It's I have proof right here. Oh, I don't have any proof.
Right, because we're only halfway through the movie at this point. So the idea that he's showing his ex-best friend severed heads, you think, well, that would be if it's going to happen, it's going to be a late development. But you're right, that can pause the movie. Nobody in the world will think that there's a head in that bag. It's going to be empty. And then his friend, you're a loser, and leaves, and that's where the scene ends. Not hold the head, just freaking him out and basically taking back a whole lot of control over the situation.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk control, this scene sums that up, man.
Marty wins that encounter.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, even from look at it, but also the control he thinks he's gained. Like, you're scared of me now. And if you talk, my brother's going to fuck you up. My brother's going to kill you. Like, that control as well. And what I love about it is, and we'll get into all this, but how that twists and actually puts him more out of control. Yeah. I think that's such strong writing here. And but I want to bring it back for a second. You mentioned the book. Right. And I just want to know, and maybe this isn't the right place for it, so if not, tell me, but is the book pretty similar to the film, or does it diverge a lot, or?
No, the book is surprisingly similar. It's
cool.
It's the usual thing where stuff is cut down, stuff is trimmed. The racial element that we'll get to, I'm sure, is more pronounced in the book.
Okay.
But it still sort of plays out the same way. But yeah, I can't think of any significant differences. It's, just there's more to the book, but yeah, it's beat by beat. It is the same story and a lot of the same, because the movie has his voiceover narration. Most of that comes directly from the book.
Nice.
But yeah, I read the book immediately. I ordered it as soon as I saw the movie, read it as soon as it came in. And, it's first person, so you're fully in his head, which is the way you are in the movie. I think there are a couple bits where we follow other characters, but for the most part, every scene has Marty and it's from his perspective. And that's how the book is. The book is first person, present tense, so you're kind of like right in the moment.
Cool.
But yeah, same ending, same overall chain of events. It's a really excellent book. Todd Rigney. So.
Nice. So going back a bit to build up to all of this control issue, and then how we got to this scene where he's showing his ex-best friend a head. Even the control that Marty's mom places over what he can watch. Like, she's pretending she's going to reward him, like pretending as in she thinks she has time and she never actually comes through on this shit. But she's going to reward him with like a movie day. They can go pick something out. Him and dad are going to go, and Marty's all excited. And then mom's instantly like, but you can't pick a horror film. And it's that little, like, this is the happiest thing for you, but I got to take it from you,
Yeah.
And then dad tries to say, "Oh, I'm sure we'll find something family friendly," and like winks at Marty, which I liked. Like that gave me a connection with the parents because that is one thing I think could be stronger in this. I'd like to see more of a connection. We'll talk about why at the end here, but I felt like that was such another great way of showing how Marty's always promised things and then everyone takes it away, but also how he kind of feels like he's treated like a baby. Like, you're not allowed to watch these things. Your brother is a mess and I don't want you to be like him, so you can't do these things. And everything's always pulled back and just kind of like she's holding on to him being a little kid, you know?
Yep. And I like, the parents aren't monsters. You get the early scene where he's sort of bonding with them because the father is yelling at the older brother and they're sort of like making fun of it as it's happening, just a way to diffuse the tension. Father's not a great guy. He's a openly racist, but he's not beating his son every night. He's a bad person, not a great father, but not cartoonishly evil.
Yeah, definitely. No, he feels very real. But even like that scene that you're talking about where they're making fun of him and the brother fighting, I thought that was such a great scene that I haven't seen in a lot of stuff. Mom and Marty are sitting at the table basically pantomiming the fight upstairs. I thought that was a really nice way to build a relationship with Mom and show that Marty cares about her and has some good times with her.
Yeah.
And it shows her protective nature.
It's not overwhelmingly bleak life for him. He gets along with his parents sometimes. He gets along with his brother sometimes. He specifically says, sometimes his brother's nice to him, sometimes his brother's horrible to him. So it's not relentlessly nightmarish to be poor Marty.
Well, and what I like about that is like how much of that is Marty's fault. Like, he's constantly going in his brother's room when he's not supposed to. He's up when he's not supposed to be, so his brother has to come and be like, "Hey, put some clothes to hide the light, man. Put clothes under the door and stuff," And like, I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition because, we see him yell at him a couple times, but for the most part, it seems more like almost like I'll take the brunt because it doesn't faze me and I'll keep them off of you.
Yep.
But yeah, man, the control thing runs through this film so much more than I originally thought it did till we started talking about it. And you go to the film Headless. So he gets to the VHS store and he's looking at different movies and he picks some out. And of course, they're all horror films. And he brings them up and Headless doesn't have a tape. And the guy at the counter is like, "Well, if it doesn't have it, then it's either lost or stolen or whatever. Guess you're out of luck." And then later he finds out his brother's the one that stole it. And even that is kind of a control thing because he's overcome the system. He got the tape that he wanted. He gets to force his friend to watch it, and pick the film and whatever. And also he's once again, like, he asked his brother if he could like look through his films, but I feel like there's still a control thing there as well. Like, it's another secret I know about you and that sort of thing. But what do you think about that?
Well, clearly his brother didn't think he would pick Headless. It's got this bad label. They show you very clearly that the box is cracked. So was not supposed to be the one he picked because once he opens it, the paper falls out and it's got the timestamps written down. And it doesn't specifically say what this means, but this is his favorite kills in the movie. This is so that he can, I think the movie, it doesn't say when it takes place. I assume it takes place early 90s. And
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So they've got, since he doesn't have the DVD where you can go straight to scene selection, he's written down his favorite kills in the movie so that he can watch them over and over. And
I loved that.
Yeah. And then we get to Headless, which, I'm sure Headless was a lot of fun to make because the point is these characters are watching a movie with no redeeming value whatsoever. And so our filmmaker, Scott Shermer, and his crew got to make a film with no redeeming value whatsoever, just a violent gore fest. And first they watched, I can't remember the name they're watching. It's a cheesy movie within a movie. They switched to Headless, and Headless is played straight. It's funny. We talked about dark humor. It's funny from the standpoint of how over the top it is, but none of it is played for laughs. It is played deadly straight.
Well, and I think that actually made it work really well, because while it starts out kind of funny, it gets really crazy really fast. And it sucks that humor right out of there, so to speak.
And, Headless, the movie within the movie, is meant to be, enjoyed by sick people. It's not, look at this horrible thing. Will the woman ever get out of it? You're not supposed to want her to escape the situation. The whole point of Headless is look at this torture and enjoy it as a viewer. It's really just a, thoroughly vile film, which works in the context of Found, because you're cutting back and forth between Headless the movie and Marty's reaction, and he's not enjoying it at all, which is sort of where you're thinking, okay, this is a redemption story. This is Marty, Marty's not his brother, because his brother clearly is watching Headless over and over and over and enjoying it. Marty hates it. Marty is disgusted by it. His friend is enjoying the special effects and stuff. Oh yeah, that's cool. That was a cool kill. But Marty's just, appalled by what he's seeing, not enjoying it at all. And you figure, okay, so Marty doesn't really have the serial killer thing in him, because he's just completely grossed out by this completely, no redeeming values movie.
It's a great misdirect in that way. Like you said, it totally feels like this is the turning point for him. Or maybe his friend is going to think it's great, and Marty's got to fight that off as well, or whatever. But no, that's not where we go at all. No. But the other thing I really dig about this film within a film is when we get to the end, obviously we'll talk about this more, but I feel like having watched this is what makes the end. The end would be powerful as shit by itself. But having watched this, and then everything that takes place off screen at the end, is such a kick in the nuts, because it makes you imagine it the way Marty would, right?
Right.
And again, we'll come back to that. But I want to say this scene where the Headless killer takes out the machete, rips off the woman's breast, and then literally slams his face into the hole and sucks out the blood. Wow.
Yeah, that's when you're like, wow, this movie is not playing around, because it's, the Headless portion is as gory as it gets. But until then, we've seen severed heads, but they're basically blood-free severed heads. It's not a gore fest at all. And then suddenly it's like, surprise. And you're watching this movie that's going so much further than you ever thought it was going to.
Well, and again, it kind of works because we don't see the kills. We don't even see Marcus die, we just see the aftermath of his head. And I think it's cool how that totally puts you into Marty's perspective. We're seeing the parts that Marty has seen. Marty doesn't get to see the kills. He has to just see the heads afterwards, and probably doesn't want to see the kills, but you know what I'm saying? And I think that works so well. And then it also makes this film within a film even more horrific than it would be on its own, because everything's been pretty toned down before this. And then just wow.
Then it stops.
And then then there's the scene in Headless where he rips out an eye and eats it, and then proceeds to fuck the eye hole. And I'll be honest, I was like, are they gonna go there? And then they did, and I was like, that's so much more disturbing than I ever would have thought that it was. It's pretty disturbing in my head when I've heard people joke about it, but wow.
Yeah. And this is a, extended sequence. The Headless is not just a couple quick clips. It, you get quite a bit of the movie.
Yeah, they put a lot of work into the film within the film, that's for sure. And so you get this extra thing that feeds into Marty, where having watched the film, he can't help but picture his brother doing every one of these things.
Right. And to the point where we see a clip where he sees his brother in the movie, and then we he's actually a different actor. But he's, his brother, he's not sure if his brother was inspired by it, and it's never answered. Did his brother base his killings on what he saw in Headless, or did he just, because he does that, he identified with Headless? It's not completely clear, but there is a definite connection.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things I like about it because, again, it goes back to Marty's perspective, right? Like, Marty's never going to get those answers. And so this is a case, like, I don't have a lot of problem with horror not answering things. I think that's a large part of horror. But this is one of those places where I think it's really effective to not have answers.
Yep.
So when his best friend, they finish watching this film, and then his best friend does the whole, I don't want to be your friend, you know? And it's because he thinks Marty's been scared shitless of this film. It's not really because of that, but this is his door, right?
Yep. This is
He's
exit
like,
strategy.
yeah, he's like, oh, you're a little baby, like you're shaking through the whole film. Maybe those guys were right, and you do have a small dick. And wow, what a great 12-year-old insult, by the way. Like that's hard at that age. At my age, I'd be like, and what do you care about my dick size if we're going to be friends? That's weird, you know, but but at that age, like that's a huge problem. It's, oh my God, what are people going to think? You know, whatever. Like I love how they're hitting this really hard, real note with Marty, but it's also still very realistic and very fifth grade.
Yep. Yeah. So it's it's not as disturbing as the movie we've just watched, but it's a disturbing scene.
Yeah.
So,
but
and that takes us into the final scenes of Found, where we get our fake motive, which is where the racism comes in, because he finally confronts his brother because his brother now knows that he knows about the heads, knows about the killings, and he explains it. The whole racism explanation, which we find out is complete bullshit, but it's they establish. See, his explanation basically, I hate black people, that's why I kill them, get rid of them. It's at the beginning of the movie, it's already sort of revealed as bullshit because he says, my brother has a head, the heads change. It's usually a black woman, but sometimes it's a white woman. Well, if it's sometimes a white woman, that immediately removes your motive. Yep. You can pretend that's what it is. And, there's a very clear moment at the end where you realize, that's not his motive. That's a fallback because that's more socially acceptable than I'm just a depraved, freak. But they within 20 seconds of the movie, that's been revealed as not really the case, but that's his explanation.
No, I think that's that's one of the big things online. Like, oh, this movie is racist and blah 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 blah. And I was really hoping Don would be here because he'll break it down better than I will. But just the whole fucking what you just said. It's immediately proven that that's not it.
Right.
And
now, if you stop watching, let's say I'm not watching a movie with the N-word, you shut it off. You can make a case that it's a racist explanation, but it's proven to be a lie very blatantly later.
I thought it was very interesting that when I was reading these reviews and people were saying this, they didn't have anything to say about the rest of the film. It was like this was an out to not care about this film or not support this film. And okay, cool. Maybe you don't like this film, but like it felt like it was overly focused on that instead of like maybe you don't want to watch a guy screw the eye hole of a lady whose head he just cut off.
But it's a fair enough reason to exit the movie, but it's eventually revealed that that's not really what it is.
Yeah, it's just
it's easier to say, well, I'm killing people. His two explanations: I'm killing people who hurt my brother, and I'm killing people because black people are ruining the community. Ruining the country. So those are more socially acceptable than I am a depraved pervert who gets off on torturing and killing people. So that's whether he tells himself that or that's his, whether he understands what he really is, we, the viewer, understand because it's very visible.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should we head right to the ending?
Let me talk about his brother for a bit here really fast. One of the things I really like is how their relationship is built. It's such an age difference between them to start with. And I love that. You see a lot of movies where everybody's like around the same age. And I don't know, that's not how my friends were growing up. They had siblings like almost 10 years older than them, and so I like how he's kind of a dad figure in some ways, and then he's kind of a friend in some ways, and then he's kind of a bully in some ways. And I think that's all very realistic. And I like how they took totally normal things like stay out of my room, or hey, if you want to listen to music in my room, just ask first. And then even like when Marty sneaks into his room and gets stuck under the bed and Steve's coming in. Even if Steve wasn't a serial killer, like this is very relatable. Like the shit, I'm going to get caught in here, Yeah. But of course it's amped up because he's looking for a shovel. He's reaching under the bed and all that stuff. And then he leaves. And then you get this great shot where Marty looks out the window and like the lightning hits and you see Steve out there with the shovel looking up, And even that, like he's scared of him, but it's still okay. Once Steve knows and he gets the bowling ball bag back from Marty, that fear that he's living in is so good. It's, he just leaves a note like, we'll talk later.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, man. Like, this kid's a serial killer and he's mad at you. And he just left you a note that basically says you can't run.
I mean, even when there are no serial killers involved, we have to talk. That sends cold chills to your spine. So,
oh yeah,
when it comes from a serial killer, then it's even worse.
I would imagine so. I hope not to find out. Yeah. But and then you have Marty like hiding at the what is that place? Like a fun house? Is that what it's supposed to be? Like,
yeah, just a sort of a shut down amusement park type thing.
That place is great. They did wonders with their settings in this for the budget they had. But
according to the special features and some interviews I've read, that place, aside from one or two additions, that's the way the place is. That was a place.
Really?
That's how it exists.
That's awesome. Wow, that's really cool. But yeah, like he's running from Steve and he hides under the train cars and he's like down there and Steve just comes up and he's like, I can see you. Like there's all this fear of him chasing him and then he's just like, are you going to come out so we can talk or what?
Yeah.
I love that relationship. And then of course we get to where it blows up more and he's like, our boy Marty's back in the bathroom, this time at a movie theater. And Steve shows up and pulls him out of the stall so that, he's echoing these things that have hurt Marty so much. And what did you think of that symbolism? Like doing the bathroom
scene? You just can't go to the bathroom in peace. It's like an extra level of bullying. It just calls back to the idea that it's just ever present.
And it's your most vulnerable place, too. Right. Yeah, no, I love
all he wants to be able to pee in peace, and he just can't do it.
And then that while I'm in this scene, this movie employee guy, the theater employee or manager or whatever he is, he comes in and Steve tells him to go away and he does. And then he has the balls to walk back in and be like, that guy's a prick, man. It's like, you're not a 14-year-old kid. That was one of the funniest and most depressing parts of this film to me, how that guy could just leave and let this happen because he didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, you assume when he leaves that, okay, they're brothers. That's not none of my business. Then you find out, that random stranger who was beating you up in a public restroom, not the best employee.
Yeah, that's pretty great because you're right. I had that same feeling. I was like, he knows they're brothers. He's letting this happen. And then he comes in and finds out he's a brother. And I was like, so you're just an asshole who left. Oh, my God. But yeah.
I would not be patronizing that movie theater then.
No kidding. And then he goes back out with Dad to finish watching the movie. And, I don't know. Like, he's just so used to being bullied that he just kind of goes back to life,
Yeah.
Sad. Yeah, so let's move into the end then, because I just wanted to kind of work on this relationship between them. So we got Dad threatening. He kicks Steve out, and then Steve comes back and like wakes up Marty and takes him outside to talk. And then Dad goes all crazy and super pissed about it. Well, he kicked him out when he hit Marty, right? Like Dad hits Marty and then Steve gets kicked out, correct?
Right. Yep.
Okay. So right there, I mean that's another level. Like we see Dad hit Marty, and then Steve tries to defend him and gets kicked out of the house. And then he comes back, and this is all very much the brotherly relationship thing, right? Like, I don't remember where it is, but there's that part where he hugs his brother, and Marty says, "Thank you for killing Marcus."
Yep.
And wow, what a scene that was. That's something I don't normally see for sure. But yeah, so he gets kicked out, and then he basically tells Marty like, "Hey, I need you to sleep in my room because some shit's gonna go down." And Marty puts up another fight. We're back to control. We're back to not being told what to do. And Steve's literally trying to save his life at this point because he says, "I don't know what I would do to you." And what kills me about this is there's all this talk of, "I don't want to hurt you." And yet he's reenacting the same things the bullies did. He's constantly threatening his brother. Like, it's a very interesting justification.
Right. And if you pause the movie, now we sort of skipped over. There was the bit where Marty does stand up for himself. The kid won't stop bullying him, and he basically bashes him into a tree and then just repeatedly beats him up and then refuses to apologize. And the parents like, "Look, apologize to this kid. Violence is never the answer." He wouldn't leave me alone. "Well, violence is not the answer, and I need to know that this isn't going to happen again." "Well, I can't tell you that because if he does it again, I will do it again." So Marty has stuck up for himself, and it worked out badly. No one praised him for it. But at this point, if you pause the movie, you think, okay, this is where Marty stands up to his brother. Marty is going to be the hero. That's where I thought the movie was going. I didn't think it was necessarily going to be, the music swells and everyone dances off into the sunset. But I'm thinking this is the Marty versus Steve confrontation. Marty retains his humanity and, defeats his evil brother, which is not quite where it goes.
No, not at all.
But it also doesn't go the opposite end with Marty, revealing himself to be even worse. It's sort of, if the whole movie has been Marty trying to keep control of his life, the climax is it being taken completely away, like 100%, like the worst it has ever been in his entire life. And this is also where we expose the lie of Steve's motive, because he's a racist. He's doing it to help his brother. But he comes in, he says, "I'm going to he doesn't specifically say that, but he implies very strongly he's going to kill their parents because they treat you wrong. You're better off without them. I'm going to get them out of the way." And then he goes in to do just that. And then the moment where you realize everything's changing is when he's attacking his mom. He starts feeling her up and licking her face. And you say, okay, there's something very, very different going on here. And he's enjoying it. It's not, "I'm removing this problem from our lives." It is, "This is what I like to do."
Mm-hmm.
And then, Marty gets knocked out. And then we enter, the extended final sequence where Marty is tied to Steve's bed with a ball gag, completely helpless. He can turn his head, but he can't move. All he can do is watch what happens. And that's when Steve walks into the room with a great big boner. And it is a thematically crucial boner. This is the key. It is not a gratuitous shot. It is the key to the whole character, because it says that everything he has said up to this point is a lie. What actually, he kills people because he gets off on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is a rock hard killer. And at that first, you were not expecting to see an erect penis in this movie.
No,
just
definitely
from the
not.
standpoint that, just even though we've sat through Headless, the movie within a movie, we're still, whoa, did not think that's where the movie was heading. But, again, it has proven the lie. This is why he does it. Whether he admits it to himself or not, this is why he does it. And then we have, again, I totally agree with you, because we've seen how, the full-on gore fest of Headless, makes it more disturbing because the entire finale of the film is off screen. It is close-ups of Marty unable to do anything, and all you do is hear what's happening. Steve walks out of the room. We hear his mother begging. We know exactly what's happening, and it's really, really bad. And then at some point, his mom stops screaming. Marty comes back in, or not Marty, Steve comes back in, completely drenched in blood, still naked, and then goes back. And then you hear his father shouting, and then finally his father stops shouting. And it's a fairly long scene. All you're really getting are close-ups of the open doorway, and you hear it, and then the close-ups of Marty's face. And it is just about one of the most disturbing sequences I've ever seen in a movie. It is really uncomfortable to watch.
I would 100%edly argue that it's so much worse than if they showed it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if they showed it, I can go, it's a movie, and write it off, and I don't have the same feelings I would have. When you make it live in my imagination, on the other hand, it becomes a part of me. And then I have 10,000 feelings about it, and Oh my God, it hits so much harder than if I saw any of this. No pun intended with harder.
Yeah. And this is a movie where, I thought this is headed for redemption. This is the story of the kid who stands up, okay, he, all his control was taken away, but now he stands up to his brother, and his mom and dad say, we were wrong. You do need to stand up for yourself. Good job, Marty, saving us from our homicidal other son. And then, credits. And you think, okay, that was a heartwarming little movie. I enjoyed it. Instead, it goes so much darker than you thought the movie could ever go. But we're not done yet. We're not.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. And yet. So,
his brother basically comes back in because I've done this for you, even though it's a lie. He didn't do it for him. He did it because he loves it. And then he just sort of loses it when he finds out that his brother is, when he finds out Marty is horrified, this horrified wail of misery. And then it cuts to the next morning. His brother walks out, still naked, drenched in blood. You hope he got apprehended at some point.
Right.
His fate, you don't know his fate, but he's leaving. And you're like, okay, so what happened to our hero? You see kind of, the couple well-lit shots of the rest of the house. Then we're in the bedroom. We see some dripping blood. And then we get, I'm not going to go on record saying this is the most disturbing final shot of any horror film. I'm going to say that I cannot immediately come up with a better candidate for most disturbing final shot of a horror movie. And then, and in fact, if you haven't seen Found, and we have ruined the first hour and 40 minutes of it for you,
please go away.
Just go ahead, have everything ruined up to that point, but just go in blind to the final shot, which is Marty in the bed, covered in blood, with his parents' mangled, eyeless bodies right next to him. And the great final line of the movie, voiceover narration, this is the kind of thing that could really warp a person. Cut to black.
God, I love that.
It's like, holy crap.
And maybe it's that mix. Maybe it is the perfect final line with that shot. They're both great on their own, but together, wow. Like that's why I would put it as a candidate for best ending, as you said. It's that together is just wow.
Because this kid is done for. Found 2, he is in a padded room, locked away. It's over. His arc is finished there because this kid is never going to be normal.
No. Even they could come save him in 10 minutes. This kid is done for, man. Like, you can't come back from that, I don't think.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see how. The other thing I love about this ending is it changes the meaning of the title. Yeah. Found this whole time, to me, is about a head in a bowling ball bag. He found it. That's what he found. He found this thing, and it's so good. And then you get the reveal where he's like, will anybody miss mom at work? Will anybody miss dad? Will they come will they come to the house? What will they see? And when will I be found?
Yep.
And I was just like, oh my God, that was great. And then, I got sucker punched with the last line instead, but wow.
Yeah. You hope that whoever found him just put him out of his misery. Just said, you know what, this kid, let's get a pillow, put it over his face, because we don't need this kid walking around now, because it's over for him.
Yeah, like if Steve wasn't an asshole the rest of the film, like he left this kid alive. Like that's one of the worst things that he did.
Yeah.
So
then the lights come on and just sort of stagger out of the theater. What did I just see?
Man.
I thought it was going to be a fun movie about a head collecting serial killer, and it was not.
I want to see this sometime. We have the Phoenix Film Bar here. I don't know if you have something similar where you are, but they'll do like one-shot nights where they'll show a film and, a group of 60 people come and get to watch it together, right? I want to see this with a crowd so much, and I want to see it with a crowd who doesn't know what's fucking coming so that I can sit there and watch everyone in the theater instead. I think that'd be great.
That would be an interesting experience. It remains one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I just walked into it, no expectations, and just sort of staggered out of it, and emailed Todd Rigney, said, my God, I just saw Found, and it was unbelievable. And so and the book I highly recommend the book too. Everything about it is, I am team Found.
Nice. Do you know if he's written anything else that's comparable, or I don't know if you've read his other books, or if he has other books, or
he's got other books. He's got one called Mirth, and it's really, really good, but it's just pure bizarro. It's just weird, funny stuff. I don't know that he's written anything that beats the crap out of you like Found, but his stuff is great. He's a really, really good writer. In fact, Found, it's called Found and Other Stories. So you get the full novel Found and then 12 other stories, and it's all
oh wow,
excellent stuff. But the sucker punch of Found is not typical of his work. It's just really entertaining, good stuff.
That's kind of great in itself. Like, because if you read his other stuff and then picked this up, haha.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, Mirth is great. It's a M''RTH. And it's a really fast read. I very highly recommend it if you need, if you're so traumatized by Found that you need something weird to pull you back, then Mirth by Todd Rigney.
Fantastic. Well, I love Bizarro, so you sold me right there. So,
all right.
So let's bring it back to you, man. Where can people find you online or that kind of thing? And do you have any books coming out you want to push, that sort of thing? Go for it, man.
I've got a book called Deathless, which I consider it's the sequel to my novel Pressure. That will be out. The hardcover special edition will be out in September, and then a paperback and ebook will follow at an unspecified time fairly soon after that. In any other conversation, I would be saying, look, it's a disturbing, highly suspenseful read. But after watching Found, Deathless is like a break. Deathless is a romantic comedy compared to Found. So in another context, I would say, look, man, you may not be ready for Deathless, but you're ready for Deathless. It's good. So
I mean, I feel like Saw and Hostel are a romantic comedy comparatively. Yeah.
So if after watching Found you need to be brought back up to realize that life is a delightful, magical experience, then read my serial killer novel, Deathless, the sequel to Pressure. And you can find me at www.jeffstrand.com. And I'm, of course, on Twitter at Jeff Strand and Instagram at Jeff Strand Author. And yeah, so website has everything you need to know.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming back again, man. I had a great time. This was obviously a little different than Return of the Living Dead, but
yeah,
I'm so excited that you told me about this film. Like this is one I'm going to be preaching to everybody. So you've made a convert out of me today. That's
maybe
for sure.
Not everybody. Maybe select.
No, that's not how I work.
You do you.
Hey, Mom, I got a movie for you.
Yeah.
No. That's
It's
not
pretty much like if you're dating someone that you want to get out of the relationship, it's like, yay, let's snuggle and watch Found. It's how bad can it be?
That's awesome.
All right.
So thank you once again for swinging by, and you are welcome back anytime, man.
All right. If they ever make Found 2, we'll return. Which is
All
just
right.
90 minutes of him twitching in an asylum.
That could be surprisingly effective. All right. So until next week, I am James Sabata, and I assume Don will be back with us, but we'll see here at thenecronoma.com.